January 14, 1968. 11:47 p.m., a bamboo hut in the mountains of northern Thailand, 3 miles from the Burmese border. Frank Lucas sat across from a man who controlled more heroin than every Italian family in America combined. On the table between them, $400,000 in American cash, unmarked, untraceable. The kind of money that could buy a man's loyalty or his death. The general's soldiers surrounded the hut. 15 men with automatic rifles. Frank had come alone. No bodyguards, no backup. Just a black man from North Carolina with a briefcase full of cash and a plan that would either make him the richest drug dealer in American history or get him buried in a jungle that nobody would ever find. What happened in that room over the next 3 hours would destroy the Italian mob's 50-year monopoly on heroin. It would make Frank Lucas $1 million a day. And it would change the drug trade forever. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand what Frank Lucas was walking away from. For half a century, the Italian Mafia had controlled every ounce of heroin that entered the United States. The French Connection, Sicilian refineries, distribution networks that stretched from Marseille to Manhattan. Every dealer in Harlem, every pusher on every corner, paid a tax to the Italians. 30%, sometimes 40%, non-negotiable. You wanted to sell dope in America? You bought it from the Italians. You paid their price. You played by their rules. And if you didn't, they had ways of handling that too. Frank Lucas had been watching this system since 1966, when Bumpy Johnson was still alive. He'd driven Bumpy around Harlem for years, watching, learning, calculating. Bumpy was old school, respected, connected. But even Bumpy paid the Italian tax. That's just how it is, Bumpy had told him once. You don't fight the system, Frank. You work within it. But Frank wasn't built like that. Behind those quiet eyes was a calculator that never stopped running numbers. 30% to the Italians. Another cut to the middlemen. By the time the product hit the street, the profit margin was a fraction of what it could be. Frank saw waste, inefficiency, a business model begging to be disrupted. Then Bumpy died. July 7, 1968, heart attack at Wells Restaurant on Lenox Avenue. And suddenly, Frank Lucas wasn't just a driver anymore. He was a man with connections, knowledge, and a plan that would have made Bumpy Johnson call him crazy. "I'm going to the source," Frank told his brother Huey 3 weeks after Bumpy's funeral. "Cut out every middleman between here and Asia. Buy direct, import direct, sell direct." Huey stared at him like he'd lost his mind. The source? Frank, that's the other side of the world. That's the Golden Triangle. That's warlords and generals. And that's where the money is, Frank said quietly. And I'm going to get it. The Golden Triangle. The intersection of Thailand, Burma, and Laos. Mountains so remote that governments pretended they didn't exist. Poppy fields stretching to the horizon. More raw opium than anywhere else on Earth. The Italians bought their product from Turkish suppliers, who bought from Middle Eastern traffickers, who bought from Asian refiners. 4, 5, 6 middlemen, each one taking a cut, each one adding risk. Frank Lucas planned to eliminate every single one of them. But how does a black drug dealer from Harlem even get to the Golden Triangle? How does he make contact with people who've never heard of him, who have no reason to trust him? Who could kill him and take his money without consequence? Frank had one advantage. Bumpy Johnson had introduced him to a man named Ike Atkinson, Sergeant First Class Leslie Ike Atkinson, United States Army, stationed in Bangkok. Ike had connections, military connections, government connections, connections to people in the Golden Triangle who actually controlled the product. "I can get you a meeting," Ike told Frank over a crackling phone line. "But what happens in that room is on you. These people don't play games. You come correct or you don't come back." Frank flew to Bangkok on January 12, 1968. Commercial flight, tourist visa. One suitcase containing $400,000 in cash money he'd scraped together from every deal he'd ever done. Every favor he'd ever called in. His entire net worth in a leather briefcase. The flight took 26 hours with 3 stops. Frank didn't sleep. He sat and coached the briefcase between his feet, running the numbers in his head. If this works, he thought, I'll make back this $400,000 in a week. If it doesn't work, he didn't let himself finish that thought. Ike met him at the airport. They drove north for 16 hours. Paved roads became dirt roads. Dirt roads became trails. The jungle closed in around them like a green fist. "Last chance to turn back," Eek said as they approached the final checkpoint. Frank looked at him, said nothing. Ike nodded and kept driving. The checkpoint was manned by soldiers in unmarked uniforms. They searched the car, found the briefcase, opened it, saw the cash. Their eyes went wide, then careful. One of them made a phone call. 20 minutes later, they were escorted up a mountain path to a bamboo structure that looked like it could collapse in a strong wind. Inside was the most powerful drug lord in Southeast Asia. The General Frank never learned his real name. Never wanted to sat behind a wooden table with a cup of tea in front of him. He was small, maybe 5'5", late 50s. He wore a simple military uniform with no rank, no identification. His face showed nothing, but his eyes tracked Frank like a predator watching prey. Behind him stood 4 men with rifles. Outside, another 11. Frank had counted them all. "You are the American," the general said. His English was precise. British accented. "You have brought money." It wasn't a question. Frank set the briefcase on the table, opened it, turned it toward the general. $400,000 in neat stacks. The general didn't look at the money. He looked at Frank. "The Italians have been buying from my associates for many years," he said. "They pay well. They are reliable. Why should I sell to you?" This was it. The moment Frank had rehearsed in his head 1,000 times. He could feel his heart pounding, but his voice came out steady, quiet, like he was discussing the weather. "Because I'll pay more. I'll buy more, and I won't send middlemen to waste your time." The general's expression didn't change. "The Italians buy 100 kilos per month, sometimes 150. Frank leaned forward slightly. "I'll buy 200 every month, and I'll pay cash. Up front, every time." A flicker in the general's eyes, interest, or maybe suspicion. 200 kilos is a significant commitment. "The logistics alone, I have the logistics," Frank said. "I have military transport. I have people in country. I have distribution networks in New York that the Italians don't even know exist." The general studied him. "You speak very confidently for a man sitting in my mountains with no protection and no way home." Frank didn't blink. This was the test. He knew it. The general wanted to see fear, wanted to see desperation, wanted leverage. But Frank had learned something driving Bumpy Johnson around Harlem for all those years. The loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room. So he kept his voice low, his movements slow, his eyes steady. "I'm not here to make threats," Frank said. "I'm here to make money. For both of us. The Italians pay you what? 4,000 a kilo, maybe 5. The general's silence confirmed it. "I'll pay 10 cash every time. You'll double your money without changing anything except who picks up the product." The general set down his teacup. The room was silent, except for the jungle sounds outside. Insects, night birds, things moving in the darkness. 10,000 per kilo, the general said slowly. 200 kilos per month. That is $2 million. "That's just the beginning," Frank said. "You give me quality, real quality, not the stepped-on garbage the Italians have been pushing, and I'll triple that order within a year. I'll make you richer than you've ever been, and you'll never have to deal with another middleman again." The general looked at him for a long moment. Then he did something Frank didn't expect. He smiled. "You are either very brave or very stupid," the general said. "I have not decided which." "I'm a businessman," Frank said. "Same as you." The general nodded slowly. He picked up his teacup again, sipped, set it down. "There is one problem with your proposal." Frank waited. "How do you intend to transport 200 kilos of heroin from my mountains to New York City? The Italians use ships, planes. They lose 30% to interdiction. How will you do better?" This was the question Frank had been waiting for. The secret weapon. The reason he'd come all this way with nothing but cash and confidence. "Military coffins," Frank said quietly. The general's eyebrows rose. First real reaction he'd shown all night. "Explain." Frank leaned back in his chair. "America is at war. Every week, cargo planes fly from Southeast Asia to the United States. They carry soldiers, equipment, and bodies. The bodies come home in metal coffins, flag-draped, sealed. Nobody inspects a dead soldier's coffin. Nobody opens it. Nobody questions it." The general was silent for a long moment. You would hide heroin inside the coffins of dead American soldiers. I would hide product inside coffins, period. Some might have soldiers in them. Most won't, but they'll all have flags on top. And nobody, not customs, not the military police, not the DI's going to open a coffin with an American flag on it. The general stared at Frank with something that might have been respect, or horror, or both. You have thought about this carefully. I've thought about nothing else for 2 years, Frank said. I know the transport schedules. I know the inspection protocols. I know which bases process the bodies and which airfields they fly out of. I have contacts at every point in the chain. All I need is the product. The general was quiet for a long time. The soldiers behind him shifted slightly. One of them coughed. Outside, the jungle kept making its noises. Frank sat perfectly still, the briefcase of money open between them, and waited. The Italians will not be happy, the general finally said. The Italians won't know, Frank replied. Not until it's too late, and by then, I'll have the best product in New York at half their price. Their customers will come to me. Their dealers will come to me. Their whole operation will collapse from the inside while they're still trying to figure out what happened. The general picked up his tea again, finished it, set the cup down with a soft click. You have courage, American. And you have a plan, but plans fail. Courage fades. What makes you think you can succeed where others have not even dared to try? Frank thought about Bumpy Johnson, about the years of watching and learning, about his brothers back in Harlem waiting for word, about every dealer who'd ever paid the Italian tax and accepted it as the cost of doing business, about everyone who'd ever told him to stay in his lane, know his place, accept the system as it was. Because I don't have a choice, Frank said quietly. I'm not going to spend my life paying taxes to people who think they own me. I'm not going to beg for scraps from the Italian table. I came here to build something, an empire, my empire, and I'm going to do it with or without your help. The only question is whether you want to get rich with me or watch someone else do it. The general was silent. Then he laughed, short, sharp, like a bark. I believe you would try, he said. I believe you might even succeed. He stood up. The soldiers behind him snapped to attention. We have a deal. American, 10,000 per kilo. 200 kilos to start. Cash on delivery. My people will contact your people with the logistics. He extended his hand. Frank stood and shook it. The general's grip was surprisingly strong for such a small man. One more thing, the general said, still holding Frank's hand. If you are lying to me, if you are working for the Americans, if this is some kind of trap, I will find you. And what I do to you will make death seem like mercy. Frank held his gaze. I'm not lying. I'm not a cop. And I don't trap people. I make money. That's all I do. The general released his hand. Then go make money, American. We will talk again soon. Frank walked out of that bamboo hut at 2:43 in the morning. The jungle was pitch black. The soldiers watched him pass. Ike was waiting by the car, engine running, face tight with tension. Well, Frank got in, closed the door. Let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for 3 hours. We're in business. Ike stared at him. He said yes. He said yes. 200 kilos a month. 10,000 per kilo. Military transport. Ike's hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Jesus Christ. Frank, do you know what you just did? Frank looked out the window at the darkness, at the mountains he'd never see again. At the beginning of everything, yeah, he said quietly. I just cut out the middleman. The first shipment arrived in New York 6 weeks later. 50 kilos of the purest heroin anyone in Harlem had ever seen. Frank called it blue magic. 98% pure, the Italian product was 30% on a good day. Frank could cut his product in half and still have better quality than anything else on the street. And because he'd eliminated the middleman, he could sell it for less, half the price, twice the quality. Within 3 months, every dealer in Harlem was buying from Frank Lucas. Within 6 months, the Italian operation was hemorrhaging customers. Within a year, Frank Lucas was making $1 million a day. Cash, every day. More money than the Italian families made combined. And they still didn't know where it was coming from. The word spread through the underworld like fire. There's a new connect. Some black guy from North Carolina. He's got product like nobody's ever seen. The Italians sent people to find out what was happening. They found nothing. Frank's operation was family only. His brothers from North Carolina, people he'd known since childhood. No outsiders, no weak links. No one who could be turned. He ran it like a corporation. Quality control, distribution networks, discipline. You work for me. You don't use the product, he told everyone. Ever you use, you're out. Or worse, nobody used, nobody talked. The empire grew. Years later, when it was all over, when Richie Roberts and the feds had finally taken him down, when he'd lost everything and made his deals and done his time, people asked Frank about that night in Thailand, about how a country boy from LaGrange, North Carolina, had walked into the most dangerous drug territory in the world and walked out with a deal that made him a legend. Frank would get this look in his eyes. Not proud, exactly. More like he was remembering something that happened to someone else. I just did what nobody else was willing to do. I went to the source, cut out the middlemen, treated it like a business instead of a street hustle. That's all. But that wasn't all. That night in the Golden Triangle, Frank Lucas didn't just make a drug deal. He proved something that the Italians had never believed possible, that a black man from nowhere could outthink them, outwork them, outbusiness them, that the rules they'd written for 50 years didn't apply to someone who was willing to rewrite them. The loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room. Frank Lucas never raised his voice in that bamboo hut. He never made threats. He never showed fear. He just sat there with $400,000 in cash and a plan that nobody else had the vision to see or the courage to execute. And when he walked out, he owned the game. If this story of how Frank Lucas changed the game hit different, smash that subscribe button right now. We're telling the stories they left out of American Gangster. The deals, the power moves, the moments that made legends. Drop a like if you think Frank was the smartest dealer to ever walk Harlem streets. And in the comments would you have gotten on that plane to Bangkok with $400,000 cash and no backup? Would you have sat across from a warlord in the jungle and bet everything on yourself? More legendary Frank Lucas stories coming next. The Italian families didn't take this lying down. They came for him. And what happened next? You're not ready for it. Don't miss it. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. The empire is just getting started.